Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of Welcome to Treetown. I'm your guest host, chairman, and co-owner Bilal Saeed. We've had a few big announcements recently, and the biggest of which was Monday when we announced our move for the men's team to the USL2. Pretty excited about that, but along with that, those announcements, we've also had a couple more with Eric Rudland renewing his contract and Boyzzz Khumalo being introduced as the head coach of the women's side. And these are my two guests today. So we got a little special edition. Three of us are hanging out. Guys, thanks for making time for this today. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you, man.
So jumping right in, I mean, with the big news on Monday, I think there's been a lot of buzz, and I think a lot of our fans want to hear from all of us some of our input around the move to the USL. So Eric, let's start with you and give us some of your input on what you're looking forward to with this move, and what some of the feedback has been so far.
All overwhelmingly positive. I thought the event on Monday was really cool. Just to see the support from the community was awesome. Soccer people are excited about it. I think a lot of our sponsors and, kind of benchmark relationships in the community are, really eager to make the move with us, which is always cool to have that support. And so from I guess buzz after the announcement, it's been really neat, primarily in the soccer community for me in terms of feedback, but a lot of college coaches, former players, our staff, obviously, and I think just soccer people in Michigan in general have been, really excited, and, college coaches hopefully will, be even more excited about sending us their players for this next season. Some of our returning guys, I think, gives them maybe a new challenge coming back to the club this next year to compete in the USL2 compared to the NPSL, and I think it's a welcome challenge for our staff as well. To have to compete against new rivalries and build a roster with some different challenges in the new league. So I think all overwhelmingly positive, and we're pumped about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the questions I've been receiving have been around, what does it do to the schedule, the time frame, and there's not a lot of change there. We've got pretty much the same timeline for the season and the number of games. Seems like a lot of that seems to be on par with what we've done in the past.
It is. We might start a little bit later. In years past, we've started like first week of April, obviously building off local players and guys who would bring in on trial, and the fact that we'd have a U.S. Open Cup to prepare for. This year, our start might be a little bit later in April just because, we're going to be waiting for primarily most of our roster to be out of their spring semester in college, and, we most likely won't have U.S. Open Cup to prepare for in that second week of May. So, but aside from that, looking at 14 league matches, playoff schedule similar to what we've been accustomed to in the NPSL.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the other questions that seems to be pretty common and popular is like, what does this do to, the roster in terms of like requirements and recruiting style? Talk us through a little bit of some of that.
The restrictions, through USL League 2 are 8 players over the age of 25 and then 10 international roster spots. So the research that I've done and then speaking to other clubs, you have a 26-man roster that's always active. And so within that 26-man roster, the 8 over the age of 25 and 10 international players, that's the implication. However, you can have up to 40-some registered players with the league. If you look back at our previous 4 seasons in the NPSL, I know there were years where we had 40-plus players registered and suited up, in a match throughout the season. So essentially we can still have that player pool, which will probably look pretty similar to what we've had in the past. But in that active 26-man roster, we have to meet the League 2 criteria. And then from that 26-man roster, you pick your 18 players for game day roster. And obviously, theoretically on an 18-man roster, you could have 10 internationals and 8 over the age of 25. But it's something that we haven't had to deal with in the past. It's been just open-ended and make our roster as we see fit. So we're going to have to obviously be aware of those rules, regulations, and make sure we're managing it appropriately.
Yeah, so I mean, from your perspective, one thing we've always loved about you is just your strategy and your tactics going into managing the actual roster itself. So it's something you're actually a little familiar with, right? Because I don't know if everybody knows this, but once upon a time, you actually got your start in the USL coaching, correct?
Yeah.
So that was with our potential new in-state rival, which both of you guys actually have ties to. So that's actually kind of something I wanted to talk a little bit about. Boyzzz, maybe we'll start with you because I know one of uh, one of the most infamous nicknames that you carry is Triple Z, comes from none other than Mr. Dan Duggan himself. So tell me a little bit about your playing days back at the Bucks and what that was like in your time in USL too.
I mean, I think my playing days at the Bucks was good. At the time, the Bucks was one of the top teams in the country. Most players wanted to go to the Bucks in the summer, to keep fit and also to be around good players and good coaches. So it was good. That's where I met Knox. That's where I met Dan Duggan, who calls me Triple Z, and the name stuck with me. So I think the Bucks are a very good team, and there's gonna be uh, a crazy feeling playing against those guys.
Yeah. And so you also have connection, but obviously more on the coaching end. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, playing days, probably before Boise was there, I trained with those guys one summer when Steve Burns was the coach.
Oh, no way.
Way back when, yeah, late 90s. I never, based on my spring schedule at university, I wouldn't get back until like mid to late June. So, but yeah, that was my first connection to them was training.
Wow.
And then would have been at least 7 seasons ago now, the year before I took over at Lansing United, I was an assistant coach with them. And so it was a great experience for me just to see kind of the operational side, the coaching side, how they pick players, how they prepared for matches. And a lot of those lessons learned obviously have been implemented, throughout my past 6 years in the MPSL.
Yeah, they've got quite the name in lower league soccer, right? I mean, the tradition and history that's carried on with the Bucks. It's pretty exciting to have the opportunity to play against them. But I think we all felt a little bit of a change in the organization last year, obviously with the move to Flint. It was huge for them. Dan and Gary have both been influential guys to you, and I've had the chance to work with those guys over the last couple of years. But I think the addition of Costa to their group really added a different dynamic, and we heard in the championship game they drew over 7,000 people, and so I think it's going to be a great opportunity for our two communities to have a pretty awesome rivalry, and obviously do some good work in the community together. But tell us what you expect from the division as a whole this year, not just the Bucks, but in terms of competition, just how challenging it's really going to be for us.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is real. I mean, you look at the division historically, this conference has produced a lot of teams who have gone on to be successful at the national level. I mean, obviously the Bucks leading that pack, but FC United out of Chicago's super reputable side. Dayton has produced top teams the past 3 seasons. You've got Cincinnati, West Virginia, possibly 1 or 2 new clubs still to be announced coming into our division as well. So, and then when you get out of our region, you got to go to Des Moines or, that Central Conference, club like Des Moines has a ton of resources and a great history of success. Triple Z's scored a few goals for Des Moines in his playing days as well. So, it's going to be, I mean, the challenge is real for sure. But I think you look at the advantage of where we're at, there's only 2 teams currently in Michigan in the league. So, how can we use that to our advantage to try to capture the best players here? And I've already got messages from a few other clubs in the PDL saying, hey, or USL League 2, sorry, I guess we're just going to let you and the Bucks duke it out over the guys in Michigan. We're going to be hands off from now on. So I think, us coming in changes the landscape, and we just have to find a way to obviously leverage that to our advantage.
Now, one of the things that has been in the news for our club recently, obviously with the longer off season, there's not a ton of news during this period, but before both of you guys were announced and the move to USL2, we actually got some great news from also USL, but the championship with Stanley's, the largest transfer in USL history happening with former player of ours, Stanley Okumu. And I think a lot of people, that was a sense of pride just to see, those of us have met him. He's just a great guy, right? And so you want to see a guy like that succeed, especially for knowing how hard he works day in and day out, his dedication. So for our fans, is that something that, I'm asking as a fan, I guess, here. But is that something we can expect is like, you still working on attracting players like Stanley Okumu from overseas to AFC Ann Arbor?
It's the hope. I mean, we had a few guys lined up of his caliber this past season, and visa issues, we weren't able to get those guys in. So I think it's harder maybe from that market now moving forward, just because people are turned on to talent there. The agency that helped us get him are talking about running a showcase event this year, and there's more eyes on that market. But hopefully we still have some strong connections there that we could potentially pull a player in. But again, I mean, it's looking at other markets too that we have throughout our network of scouting and relationships to see if we could get a player in of his caliber. And honestly, I think when players from outside of North America look at our market, they're thinking USL, they're thinking MLS, right? So for us making the move to USL League 2, I think puts us in even a stronger position to attract, those types of players. And then with Stanley's move, we have a proven track history of helping guys, move on to the next level and really using our club as a platform to springboard their career.
Yeah, as an international player, what was the USL 2 experience like for you, and what did it mean to your kind of path to MLS?
I mean, I think it was a good move for me because I felt like I'm the type of guy who always starts from the bottom, and I always like to work my way up. Like Eric said, most of the guys when they come, I mean, everybody wants to go MLS, play professionally, but I think with us being in the USL too, it's a way to help these guys start from the bottom and work their way up, because we got myself and Eric and previous players who we can talk to and ask questions. Hey, how did you get there? What did you have to do to get there? And we also got a good network in a professional game.
Amazing. Well, I'm just going to keep going with you, boys, just because that was one of the big announcements in the offseason was, you were promoted last year from assistant coach for the men's side to technical director of the club, and again promoted this year to head coach of the women's side. Start by sharing a little bit of the story about what intrigued you to want to take this on. You've obviously had a strong connection to the men's side for a few years with a huge impact. So what attracted you about this opportunity, and how does it feel?
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity is a good opportunity. I look at myself as a coach. Again, I go back from starting from the bottom, working my way up. I've learned a lot from Eric. We worked together at Lansing. We also worked together at Madonna. So, I was always watching, learning, taking notes. So when this opportunity came, I just felt like it's a right moment for me to kind of, test my knowledge, see what I can do, and take it from there.
One of the things that made me excited about this when, we first started talking was knowing you personally and the impact you've made on the club, and how important, you guys both know this, is like the culture, the atmosphere that we build here, not only within the team and the organization, but so that it reaches out to the community. And you're a huge part of that. So
Right.
talk a little bit about, what you hope to bring in terms of the culture and atmosphere and environment to the women's side, best practices that you want to now implement on that side.
For me, I think like even the girls that I talk to, I think we want to treat this situation as professional as we can, and hopefully some of the girls want to go to the next level. And I've been doing some research. Most of the girls, they play till college days. After that, they don't know what to do after that. So for me, I feel like we have to bring in players that we know they also want to go to the next level. On a team, we got somebody like Mommy. Some of the players look up to her. We also have a couple of college girls that are, good players, and those are some of the players who are just looking to stay fit for their college season, which is a good thing. And then you also look at, we had Emily Eisman, who was still in high school. She came in and, she's working with all these good players. And her idea is hopefully to take it to the next level, to want to be like Mommy, and also bring in a couple of international players. I've talked to a couple of girls. I'm not going to mention them, but a couple of girls from outside
teaser.
of a couple of girls from outside of the country who are interested in joining AFC, because I feel like we have to be a competitive team with the girls who really want to go to the next level, and some of the girls are on national teams. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like exciting working with those type of players, and also not, them coming here, but also for me to learn from them as a coach.
So being more competitive, something you mentioned.
Yes.
It's hard to say, we're going to come out and do this and that, but
Right.
um, what's your approach going to be to get from A to Z, right? Like you want to become a more competitive side. What are you going to do to get the women's side there?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a lot of work already right now. We're already talking to players. I talk to pretty much all kinds of players. My phone is buzzing, WhatsApp. Even right now, I just came from watching Concordia play Uno. I'm also watching a lot of female games, just to get myself mentally ready, see how they do things.
Yeah, I know we had a chance to go see Chicago Red Stars play, which
Right,
was
right,
an
right.
awesome experience.
Yes, it was. And as you can see, the warm up, everything they do, the coach, how he talks to the players, it's a little bit different from the men's side. But then again, the way I look at it is players are players, whether it's a boy or girl, you still got to treat them like players. So I think what we need to do is, we talked about having training sessions with these girls 3 times a week. If we have players are chasing it to go to the professional game, then we might be training 5 times a week, and I don't mind sticking around practice, as Eric knows, with the guys too. I do the same thing because my job is to try to get these players better, not just for me, but for themselves, for their school, for the next level. So when they leave here, they know, hey, I got a good experience from, AFC and Arbor. They treated me like a family. They also paid attention on what I do, what I eat, exercise, all those things.
So some of the things that you mentioned, in terms of attracting the right type of people and helping them develop as people, right?
Right.
It's your job, but also, in your role as sporting director, you oversee the women's side, you oversee all the sporting aspects of the club, and knowing that you've worked with Boise for so long, what are some of the things that you're hoping to see that from best practices and also specifically the cultural side of things? What do you think, and hope that he's going to kind of bring to the table for the women's side here this year?
You look at the blueprint on the men's side, it's something that, is evolving. It's not like, hey, this is exactly what worked last year. It's going to work again, right? We're always trying to fine tune, and we bring in a new coach. Maybe he has different ideas. Different types of players require maybe different attention. So I think we have a framework that we've created. In terms of how we go about our business. The day to day and kind of the details are going to change from season to season. So, I guess my hope, which is what Boise and I have spoken about, is obviously taking that framework, applying it to the women's side, knowing that, hey, I mean, Boise has a different perspective. He's a different coach. He's a different leader than I am, right? So he's going to have his spin on it. Who he shapes out as his assistant coaches are going to have their own personalities too, right? And then you have, the players are different. The competition's different. So, I mean, we know that it's not going to be exactly the same as what I'm getting at. And so, I'm excited to see Boise put his stamp on it along with the coaches that he brings in. And I think it's going to be a fun project.
Speaking of fun project, the men's side losing the derby with Detroit City, but with the recent announcement, got the addition of the women's team that they'll be adding. That puts a decent amount of teams from the UWS in our state. So does that create even bigger challenges for you in terms of recruiting? Or you had mentioned talking about bringing maybe in a couple internationals. What's your approach going to be there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thing not only for us but for the state of Michigan. As you can see, the league is getting competitive. And when I first saw the news, the first thing was, hey, we have to be aggressive. We have to be aggressive with the players that we bring in because it's going to be very competitive, as you know, the rivalry with DCFC and us. So it's something that I'm looking forward to. It's something that some of the girls I've talked to are looking forward to too because they've seen it on the men's side, the crowd at DCFC, the excitement. They want to be a part of it. So I think it's a good thing, not only for us as a club, but for the state of Michigan.
So that's something you just a little touched on briefly. There's like, you and I worked pretty closely with the women's side last year as well. Built some awesome relationships.
Right.
And I know like the fans and the hooligans specifically definitely fell in love with some of the players there. So you've been in touch with some of the players from last year and have plans to engage some of them as well.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about what you've seen from those players so far and their commitment to the community just after one short season. And it's been impressive.
Yeah, no, I mean the commitment from the players was great. They've attended the community service that we provide, through different schools in Arbor and Ypsilanti. So that's another thing that I do with my side time to try to help our foundation be known in the community. It's a positive thing, not only for those players, but for us as a club. And it's also teaching these players that, hey, you also got to work with people. Whatever job you're going to get in the future, you're going to work with people. So I think what we're doing with our club, it's a good thing for the community.
Couple of fun facts. So from last year, you mentioned Emily Eitzman. So Emily and Seba, both, right, for the men's and women's side respectively, youngest goal scorers in club history we both had last year. Seba, I think, was 18 in some months or 19 in some months. And Emily, 17.
Right.
Just turned 17 before she began her season with us. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Emily just became the first youth board member for the Mighty Oak Youth Project.
Wow, that's awesome.
She's taken her level of commitment of giving back to the community to a whole nother level. Obviously, with the Mighty Oak Youth Project growing this year, we've always done the youth soccer scholarships, but we added the women's coaching scholarships,
Right.
which Mommy was a recipient of. Pretty cool, and she just got her C license. So it's cool to see that all coming together, and how, like, for me, it's super important that both of the sides are, like, on the same spectrum and radar in terms of visibility, awareness, community impact. And for me, like, knowing how you two work together, that's one of the biggest, like, bonuses for me. Is like, one thing I'm really excited about is having both our men's and women's team work together in terms of the community projects and things like that we have going on.
Right.
So I know we talked a little bit about our trip to Chicago, but tell us a little bit about your recent trip to DC, back to your old stomping grounds.
No, the trip to DC was a good trip. I usually go to DC because of my wrist. I broke my wrist a couple of years back, and so this time when I went, I decided to stop by DC United. I watched a couple of sessions, and I also watched the game on Sunday. So it was a good trip. When I was there, some of the things they were doing now, we didn't do those things back in the day. So also, talking to the head coach, Ben Olsen, who is a good friend of mine.
You used to play with him, right?
Yes, I used to play with him, and right after a training session, me and him grabbed lunch. We talked. I just shared my knowledge with him, and he also shared his knowledge with me about the game and how far he has become to be a head coach of a big club like DC United. And also, while I was there, he introduced me to Wayne Rooney.
I was going to bring it up if you didn't. I was going to bring it up if you didn't.
I mean, it was a cool thing because I was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, like, for Friday and Saturday, I was chilling with these guys, like, in the locker room, just talking. It was good, man. It was good.
Great experience, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to say that, it was a great experience. But, yeah.
Well, getting lunch with the head coach of a MLS side and being able to collaborate on ideas sounds like a pretty great experience to me.
Yeah,
I'll put it this way: when I walk through United Soccer Coaches Convention with the two of you, I feel like I'm your personal assistant. Like, first of all, super celebrity, and then another celebrity. It's like, it's crazy. So don't act like
No,
it's
I'm
not
not
a
a
big
celebrity, man. I'm just a guy.
Did they need a neutral in training is my question.
No jumping in.
Nah.
It's
No,
hard to
I wanted
believe.
to jump in, but I was like, nah, let me just stay and watch, just because it was good, when you go to these things, it's always about, having an open minded, like you get there, you watch what they do. Not to say I'm going to do exactly everything they do, like, oh, they did this, I got to do that. No, it's just looking at how they do things and how I can bring these things to AFC and Arbor and also share these things with Eric. Like, hey, Eric, this is what I saw. I think this is a good thing we can use within our club, not only at AFC, but with the youth teams that we work with.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazing. Switching gears a little bit, knowing that we're just coming up here on the international break. it wasn't too long ago where the international break that Okumu participated in AFCON, and just really had this standout performance that got him to that started really opening the doors. I mean, for me, just looking back at that, and I'm a big Riyad Mahrez fan, and like I'm sitting there watching Stanley like shoulder to shoulder with him, and in a match, it was just kind of mind blowing. But Eric, I'd love to hear from you first. Like, in total, I've counted. Actually, we were thinking the number was 16 pros.
Yeah.
So if you count Arturo.
Yeah.
And Ainga, I think that would put us at 18
Big time.
through the club history. So 18 guys who are currently playing professional soccer somewhere, with probably what would say is the biggest move that any former player of ours has ever made, signing with IF Elfsborg. What's that been like, just to see Stanley get his debut there?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things, kind of being kept up on the situation of when the initial interest came, and how the deal ended up finally coming through between Real Salt Lake and Elfsborg. I mean, it was a long process. I mean, there was times where it didn't sound like the deal was going to go through, and I give Stanley a lot of credit, through that process. Like, he knew what he wanted for his career. His agent and agency were kind of behind him. And he was adamant, like, hey, like this is the move I need to make. This is where I need to be at in my career. And he kind of stuck to his guns until he was able to sort things out with Elfsborg. And I think it's a fantastic move for him. I mean, he's in Europe, first division. He's going to play. He's going to have plenty of opportunities to show what he could do.
Already making an impact.
Yeah, so then he gets there, and it's like we're talking, it took a month, for this thing to finally happen. He gets there, and then he's delayed. He can't play because they're waiting for his work permit to finally be finalized. He's got to work his way into the team. He's got to win a spot, so it's like one challenge after the other, and as we know, after working with him, it doesn't even faze him, right? So I talked to him like a week before he got his debut, and, hey, how's things going? You think you're going to break through soon? He's like, Coach, I'm just chipping away. I'm just going to wait for my opportunity. And I said, well, as soon as you get it, you're going to do well, And, of course, it was that weekend he got his debut. And, I mean, I only got to watch the first half live. I went back and watched the second half later. But he was fantastic, And, again, the past weekend, fantastic again. So he's going to, I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities to show what he can do. And hopefully sometime soon he's going to be making his next move.
Yeah, so being in a former player in a position like that, what do you think about Stanley in terms of his mentality? I know the three of us always talk about mentality, and I just think it's, he's just one of those guys that, like, that wasn't something that we had to talk to him about, right? It was like, just think back to that first day in training, right? Like some of the comments he made to the other players about the level that they were bringing to training versus what he was used to. I mean, what's it like to see him as a kind of like an older brother figure?
No, I mean, it's good to see him. One thing I can say about Stanley, he's a very humble guy. He takes his work very seriously. But also, I mean, the first day he worked at training, everybody knew what this guy's about. This guy is here for business. And for me, it's like that because of the background he comes from. It's not like he comes from a rich family. He's just going to come here and hang out like some guys do. His thing was like, hey, I got a family. I got to provide for them. So I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to get to where I want to get to. So at training, I got to work 100 times better than the other guy. Games, when I get my opportunity, I have to show it. And I remember there's a game, I think it was in the game he was cramping. What game was it? I don't know if it was a regional finals, whatever, but the guy, you could see it in his eyes. Like, he felt bad because he couldn't do anything because he was cramping, but at the same time, he wants to help his team. So that's the type of guy he is.
Yeah, speaking of his humility, my wife, Saima, recently celebrated her 30th birthday in September.
Birthday.
And I tried to do a lot to make the month special for her. I mean, we're talking like the month. Like I pulled
Smart
out,
man, I'm taking notes over here.
Yeah, I tried, man. I tried.
Yeah.
And, like, I really feel like the highlight of her birthday month was Stanley sending a message saying, happy 30th birthday, Saima.
How cool.
And, like, him taking the time to do things like that. It's not just with me or with you guys. He keeps in touch with Tito, with other players, with other staff members. And it gets you thinking, like, Stanley's getting a lot of the attention deservingly, but there's been so many like great people that we've met through the club. Like that's with all the Monday was a big day for the club, right? Making that announcement and the move, and again, like just the last 6 weeks with you taking your new role, just kind of for me has made me just pause a little bit, reflect, like think about really all the things we got to be thankful for that the club has done for us. And what I always get drawn back to is the other players, right? The players that, well, maybe this is why Mason and I show up at our game last Thursday, and who were we playing against? Pagani brothers. I was like, listen, this
Here
is
we
not,
go.
yeah, what happened here? The Pagani brothers. I was like, Zach, I thought you moved to D.C.
Yeah.
But just all the connections we've made. Like for me, I think about even back to year one. Like guys who came from Australia, like the Albany guys, and Jeff Medina, and Luke Palmatier, and Martin Gorey, and like all the friendships I've made. And so I'd love to hear from you guys, just a couple of those moments or stories. Eric, maybe if you've got one, as being such a huge impact on the men's side, what you brought to the table. Is there any story or memory that kind of things that like you kind of pops out to you over the past few years
In terms of
relationship
with players?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to share this one, it's I mean, there's the sad side of it, but kind of the cool side as well. You look back at Mike Novotny, who was our goalkeeper when Stanley was with us in 2018, right?
Yep.
And you look back on that season, and Mike's just from outside of Chicago, and his dad driving to every game, just so committed.
And some trainings, man.
And some training sessions, and you could just see kind of how cool that relationship was with those guys. And Mike left us a little bit early that season to go play in Europe, and he had a great opportunity. And when he came back, we did everything we could to try to help him get to the next level. And in the interim of him coming back and signing his first professional contract, obviously, his dad passed away. And to kind of look back on that season he was with us and know, hey, that was kind of one of those last seasons he had with his dad watching him play. And now to be able to keep up with Mike throughout his first pro season at Hartford, to hear from the coaches out there and just getting positive feedback day in and day out about, his work ethic, his mentality, he's grinding, and on Father's Day this past season, as you guys probably know on social media and whatnot, the entire team for Hartford wore, the armband around in memory of Mike's dad, which, you look at like he's a rookie on the team. He's probably one of the youngest guys on the team. He hasn't played a ton of minutes in the team, but obviously he's made a presence out there, and that legacy, I think, of his father lives on. So, again, it's a sad story in terms of how that played out, but you look back and like all the cool memories and the connection that we still have with Mike, and the legacy now that he's made in his first year as a pro. Again, that's like one of the many stories we could share, but that's one that is recent on my mind right now.
That's an awesome one. And talk about another guy's mentality. Like I get, I've got on my FOTMob, I've got notifications set up pretty solidly to follow all the guys and all my favorite teams. And I'm praying every time I see Hartford Athletics starting lineup that, like, I'm going to see Mike's name in there. And so sometimes I send him text messages just like, man, what is going on? And he's always like, nah, man, I'm putting in my work. Time will come. And, like, I think he's got more patience than I do in that situation. But what an impressive guy, man. He's been another blessing for the club, really, honestly. Yeah. Any story you can think of with memories of players?
I don't have any stories. But, I mean, I know when guys come here for the summer, sometimes they need to, hang out and spend time with us as coaches off the field. So I think I've kind of brought that role because I've chilled with guys like Stanley, who's that other guy from Kenya? I forgot.
Chris.
Odiambo. And then we had Sergio. So they used to come to my place, and Sergio will cook some Jamaican food, and we'll play some reggae. I mean, when I saw that, because you always see guys on the field, everything is so serious. But like once we went to my place, we eating some Jamaican food, we listening to music. I didn't even know Chris liked reggae first of all, so I'm like, huh, what's this guy doing? And he knows all the songs, so
Chris,
it was
man,
good.
Chris is one of those characters that if you got to know him, it was
Yeah.
like the best thing.
Yeah, but like another incident I remember, I think I told Eric about this because the guys they were not used to American food. So I was like, hey man, what do you guys want to eat? So I took him to to the I think it's pancakes place.
IHOP.
Yeah.
IHOP. I took him there. Like they're like, what is this? They didn't even eat it, man. So I was like, man, I just wasted $50 on these guys. So all they did was just drink coffee.
The telling
Amazing.
pancakes probably, right?
Yeah, and then I was like, you know what? I got another spot I'm gonna take him to. So I took him to an Arbor. It's a Jamaican pit.
Yeah.
So the food is kind of like similar to African food. Oh my God, man, these guys, man, they calling him for seconds. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
hold up, dude, I can't afford this.
I remember one day after training, I was taking Ade home in like 2017, and he's like, yo, can you take me by the Jamaican pit? I'm like, for
Yeah.
what? He's like, I owe my tab from last night. And I'm like, man, we got a house account? Like, I don't know what's going on there.
No, it's good for those guys because the food is different. Like
Yeah.
if you take them to that spot, they can relate to the food.
That's
good
been some
thing.
of my best experiences, like actually when the guys come to stay with Simon and I. And at the end of 2018, both Chris Odiambo and Frenchie came and stayed with us. And that was one of my memories was I came home from work and like the first thing I hear is like Indian music on, and I'm like, Simon doesn't really listen to Indian music, so like what's happening? Chris is watching a Bollywood movie and cooking dinner for all of us, and I'm like, what is happening? Like
Yeah.
I had no clue what was happening. I'm like, Chris, you're into Bollywood movies? He's like, Bilal, I'm into a lot of things. I'm very cultured, and I'm just like, man, like I had almost went through a whole season without like getting to hear that sarcasm in his voice and that side of it, and man, I honestly guys living with us has probably been that's the other big memory for me was when I think Dario and Hector stayed with you for a couple nights.
Yeah, when they
And-
first got here. Yep.
And then they came over to my place. And that was the first time I really had players stay with me, and I was a little nervous. And so I didn't really know what to do to entertain them. And I remember that first night, my go-to is Cards Against Humanity.
Okay.
So, I got Google Translate for
I was gonna
Dario's
say, yeah.
phone.
Did you have them in Spanish?
Yeah, so Dario downloads Google Translate, Hector downloads Google Translate, and there's a few of us just playing Cards Against Humanity. We don't really know each other, but for those who don't know, Cards Against Humanity is a very inappropriate card game, and it's a weird way to get to know people. But let's just say this: we all know
You weren't the chairman at that time,
yeah,
right?
no, yeah. I
Just
shouldn't be
general
telling this
manager.
story. Yeah, this is oh boy, this is gonna get me in trouble. But like we all know Dario now, but like I had no clue at that moment, and I should have known by playing that game with him. Dario won Cards Against
Yeah,
Humanity,
yeah.
not being able to speak a lick of English. But that guy's mind, I
Yeah.
knew how he thinks with the cards he was playing, and he was winning everyone. He had everybody dying laughing.
Pulling the strings.
Barely speaking English. It
Yeah.
was just amazing. And, oh, man, I just think back, like, it's been awesome. You guys have been with the club 4 years. It's pretty crazy. So looking ahead, but not too far, like, what are some of the things that you might hope to see the club get into, whether it's more things in the community or things that we accomplish or silverware? What are things that you think of when you think of for the future of AFC Ann Arbor?
I think for me, I look at the football side of things, right? I have ideas about the club and growth and things like that, but I have to kind of keep focused on the football side, and obviously this transition's huge for us right now. So to get into USL League 2 this spring on solid footing, put a good team together that's competitive straight away, is the immediate action plan. Going to a lot of college games this fall and trying to make sure that we bring in the right players is first and foremost. And so, once we get into USL, like going down to the league meetings in December, like I'm just excited to grow the network and learn from other people in the league, not just in our league but in League One, the championship. Best practices, things we could do different, things we could do better. And I think for all of us, our entire club, that's going to be a welcome, pathway of information that we can continue to forge forward with. And so past this next season, just continued growth, right? How can we continue to impact the community? How can we grow our fan base? How can we continue to help players get to the next level. You know, I don't think there's an end game when it comes to that. It's just about more and more and more, and how can we continue to grow.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about. I mean, it's also like, you know, that's the thing. You take a moment to like reflect, appreciate, you know, be thankful for what we've got. But like, I don't think any of us are slowing down or thinking about, you know, reflecting for too long, because there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of things going on. Boyzzz, one thing I wanted to just ask you real quick. So I was really impressed this year with how the Hooligans stepped up for the women's side. I mean, I feel like, you know, it wasn't only equal support. It might have been like, oh my gosh, there's a women's side. They were that excited. You know, I think oftentimes, you know, the Hooligans get overlooked because other supporter groups maybe. But for me, the Hooligans, like I said the other day at the press conference, they become my friends. You know, it's been amazing to see because they care about the club so passionately and so much. What's it been like for you to get to know some of them and to know that they're going to be in the stand supporting the women's side next year?
I mean, it's been a good thing because, as you know, they support the team. They're always with us where we go. So it's a good thing. It's still a small group right now, but throughout the future, you can see growing, you know, our fan base I'm talking about. And I remember the game we had on the men's side when we played Rochester in Erie. We only had one supporter there. I mean, he was the loudest guy on the field. So, like, as you can see, man, it's a beautiful thing. The guy believes in the team. He believes in what we are doing as a club. So I just think the fan base is a good thing to have, and we just need to get out in the community and keep increasing more fans to come to the games.
Yeah, maybe, you know, small, fine, but I'll take quality over quantity any day because, you know, what a lot of people don't know is, like, you know, how much they care about the club. And, you know, I know you have a relationship with some of them. You've been pretty close with them. I mean, they are behind In Rudland We Trust. So what's it been like for you to have that kind of support from the Main Street Hooligans?
It's been great. You know, like, one of them messaged me last week after you guys met and kind of shared the move with them. He's like, hey, I'm already putting together reports on all the players, what teams, what rosters they're on. He sends me a spreadsheet, you know. I mean,
we'll just call him the spreadsheet wizard.
Yeah, exactly.
without
spreadsheet
saying
wizard. He got an award. I should look it up. What they?
Yeah, it was like the math award or something, like
data something. I gotta look this up here.
But that's the thing. I'll
be upset if I get it wrong.
They've all kind of got their like things. They actually, a lot of them bring, you know, something to the table.
The golden calculator.
The golden calculator.
That's brilliant.
Man. Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, you know, you got guys like that, but you've got everybody's chipping in to do different things, whether it's TIFO or, you know, organizing people or, you know, community service projects. Like, one thing that a lot of people don't know is a bunch of the Main Street Hooligans were the staff, volunteer staff for Jim Toy Center's Community Pride Day, right? And
that's
because
cool.
of that work that they did, Jim Toy Community Center made a $500 donation to the Mighty Oak Youth Project.
Wow.
So all hooligans, you know, just taking their time, volunteering for an amazing cause within our community.
Well, and like last year, right? They sponsored 3 guys to go to the combine, pro combine in December, which, you know, that stuff, clubs don't do that, especially supporters groups. So, I mean, their support's just been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say another thing, you know, like the trophy that they give to the players after the game.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool thing, taking a picture and then posting it up on Instagram. But I would like for them to be in the picture with the players.
Oh, that's
a little, instead of just having a player holding a trophy.
A little feedback for the Main
next,
Street Hooligans.
Next season, bring them down on the field.
Yeah.
Take a picture with them.
Boyzzz Khumalo, you heard it here first. The Hooligans need to get in the picture
with
the man or woman of the match picture.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time. I think it's super important to just keep our fans, you know, in the loop with what's going on. We've always prided ourselves on being, like, very connected to our fans, our community, and, you know, we've got a lot of exciting news. So I think maybe, I don't know if we should make this a regular thing, but I feel like if we do, that I'm going to get stuck in the middle next time. I feel like you really don't want to be in the middle right now.
Yeah, you have to be in the middle.
Thanks for joining us for this special edition of Welcome to Tree Town, and we hope to see you guys soon, hopefully next month, with another special edition.